Have you ever been in the middle of the forest, low on mana, unable to even use a compass spell, and hoping a wizard set up an illegal mana casino so you could win some? Well, I thought that'd be a funny concept at least, so I decided to become that kind, law-breaking wizard who certainly has no malintent and make a game. So my initial idea for the game the player would play is something like Peggle or Pachinko. You have a ball falling and you have to make sure the balls fall into the holes that get you the most points, using like magic or something. But after making a little board, I realized that the ball will always fall in the same spot if you drop it from the same spot. Turns out physics is not as random as I'd hoped it'd be.
What if you added a spell that like moves the ball randomly?
That's ridiculous. What are you, like a wizard or something? I made it so the ball spawner moves and the player decides when the ball falls. But how's the game going to be magic? How is the player going to use their wizard skills? I actually did get a bit stuck here, and a spell that can move the ball randomly would have probably been a good idea, but I only came up with that while writing the script for this video. Instead, I made it so the player manipulates the board. They use the mana that they've accumulated to make vines on the sticks grow and get bigger, so that the ball is less likely to go a certain way. It looks terrible, but now the player has some more control over where the ball is going. The problem with the game though is it isn't fun, and there aren't any stakes, and you're not even really gambling, so like what's the point? So basically it's not a game. To fix these, I made the world look pretty, adding in shaders and trees, nearly deleting every single file on my computer to try and use one shader I made 6 months ago because I couldn't find it fast enough, but that's neither here nor there. I gotta say, it's looking way cooler. Still doesn't fix the lack of fun problem, but it's a lot cooler. I even put in this little cloth hanging on a board. Doesn't do much, but it does sway. You'll notice the ground is a little hilly too. This is something else I stole from an old project. Basically, it just uses randomly generated noise to vary the height of the different vertices of the ground. Trust me, I don't really understand it either. Speaking of understanding though, something I'm sure you understand is that you should subscribe. Pretty please? Okay, it's time to make it more fun. Initially, I thought I would give more spells to the players that they can cast, but have to purchase using the mana they accrue. But that didn't really add more stakes to the game, although it could be fun later. No, I decided to make the player have to risk their life to try and get this mana. Well, actually, later I changed it to risk getting wet and losing all their mana, but still, a big risk. And whatever pocket the ball fell in would decide the falling pillar. I think this is basically just like what the Romans did probably. What does that even mean? Like the Romans? Like the pillars falling like the What is this talking about? I read this script like a couple of weeks ago. I actually have no idea what this Anyway, I did this by linking each pocket to a pillar which would play a falling animation whenever it detected an overlapping body. This came with a whole load of problems because I didn't tell Godot that the pillar was a moving pillar before moving it. Apparently there are static bodies that stay still and animatable bodies that are animate. I don't know why they have to be different, but this is an issue I've encountered before in my game, in I'd Kill You as a Worm, a game you should wishlist on Steam. Right now, go to Steam, I'd Kill You as a Worm, and wishlist it right now. But after I worked it out and stopped the player from being launched into space, the pillar would fall. Then I'd make it wait a bit, then it would rise like a phoenix. Well, actually it was more just like a pillar. I wanted 5 pillars, but I only had 4 pockets, and since this game board already took me ages to make, I decided 4 was plenty. Plus, it's already hard enough to remember which pocket goes to which pillar. With the pillars made, I thought it was time to bust out my 3D modeling skills and make a grand and epic pit the player could fall in. Now, there's a new problem though. The player can just take their time and make sure the ball will always fall where they're not. Sure, if they were an alpha gigachad and wanted to make mana fast, they'd risk it all, but I know apprentices aren't chill like that, so I thought it would be even better if the balls fell on their own. Now the player has to use their magic if they want to protect themselves. Or they'll have to risk jumping to another pillar, taking their eyes off the game. It's pretty tricky to stay on top of things, but it's still manageable. And if the player does want to make mana faster, they can still force more balls to spawn. I can see this concept working in multiplayer, where you have more spells and have to build mana faster to try and attack the player you're against. The last problem I had with the game is that I couldn't see anything. And no, before you ask, my eyes were not closed. The board was just too small. Well, I mean, it's probably like above average, but like for me, it's just not enough. So after scaling it up, I could see it. And normally I wouldn't mention a small change like this if it hadn't completely messed up all the physics in the game for some reason, causing me to have to remake everything. And even though I did remake everything, I still did remake it with 4 pockets for some reason. And look, I know this has been a lot of problem talk, but that's what game making's about. And something you don't really see in game dev YouTube that I've seen. It's more about this feature, this feature, this feature, this feature, as opposed to solving the actual problem of designing a game, which is what I love about game development. I decided to stop working on the game here as I only wanted to spend 2 days on the project, just as a personal little mini game jam before the new year, so I could see how far I've come. It's not the greatest game I've made, and certainly not the most fun, but I'm really happy with how I was able to iterate on the idea and shift it to be something that was at least somewhat entertaining, even after that really lame start. That's all. Wishlist, worm game, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Cheers.